Welcome to the IpX True North Podcast, where we connect people, processes, and tools. This is episode 13, Driving Change and Connectedness Through Open Communication and Constant Curiosity, with Cindy Price, Director of Engineering Services at Yanfeng, and Brandy Taylor, the Vice President of Services at IpX.
My name is Brandy Taylor, and I am the VP of Services for IpX. I am an engineer by trade. I do have a master's in aerospace engineering, but really I'm kind of a mutt. My experience spans design, test, analysis, quality, project engineering. But most recently, I've spent really the past decade or so in program management and change management. So I am super excited to be on here with Cindy. I think she's just an absolutely fantastic woman. So thanks, Chris, for having us.
And hello, and thanks for having me. I'm Cindy Price. I am married. I've got 2 adult sons. Like Brandy, I'm an engineer. Actually, I'm an electrical engineer by education, but anything but a double E when it comes to real life in my career. Similar to Brandy, I've worked in a lot of different industries, but for the most part, mostly automotive in a manufacturing setting. Most of my career, I've gone over a lot of different disciplines. So I've done manufacturing engineering, quality, program management. I've done continuous improvement, lean engineering. And I've discovered along the way that really it's not the department that is important. It's really the talent and being able to work with some really fabulous people just to drive change and make things better. So I think to talk about being a change agent, if you go back to middle school and high school. Now, I went to school, high school, middle school in the early and mid 80s, and wanting to be in math and science wasn't the most popular thing for being a female. So I think I realized that I was a change agent in retrospect, probably in high school when I was the first female to take electronics. And I took electronics all through high school, 3 years of it, and declared that I wanted to go into engineering. And so the first thing you hear was, you can't be an engineer. Well, why not, right? So discovering my passion for being a change agent really in part comes from being told no and believing, no, don't tell me no. This is possible. These things are possible. Dreams do come true and goals do get met. So I think I learned that I had a natural affinity towards being a change agent, whether that starts out being a change for diversity, which back then I had no clue that's what I was doing. I just knew that I was interested in math and science, and I wasn't going to let someone tell me no. But I also learned very early in my career that to be able to influence change, you need to have stakeholders. So being told no, in high school, it was going to my high school teacher, my high school counselor, and getting them to advocate for me, right? Say, well, don't listen to what they're saying. You're right. If you want to be an engineer, you go to school, you be an engineer. You need a letter of recommendation to get into college. I'm going to write you that letter of recommendation. Now, flash forward 35 years later, now I'm in a position that as I look at my career, I've always wanted to make things better. I want things more efficient. I want things right the first time. Nothing drives me crazier than having to do something over because it wasn't right the first time. Now, you got to balance that with learning because you learn from mistakes, and Lord knows I made a lot of them, and I've learned probably as much from making mistakes as I have from having successes. But in the long run, making a work environment or even a social environment more pleasurable is really what drives me. And it's working with people to get that done. And so I think that I've been a change agent for most of my life. I just didn't know it until probably when I first became a people manager. Probably that was when I realized, I really have this passion for driving improvement and driving change. And that actually made me curious about software and tools and databases and how do we make things connected and reuse information. So things we talk about today as being mainstream technology, I was thinking about, 20 years ago, but from the perspective of how can we make things better.
You know, Chris, I had the pleasure of working with Cindy last year for, gosh, I think it was probably about 6 months, but it was super clear to me, as you guys are probably telling already, that even though she works in the engineering domain, she has such a passion and an eye for so much more, and especially even in engineering, I think, as a leader, Cindy really communicates like super well at all levels. She just respects everyone, and she sees him as an equal, which really makes her such an effective communicator. And I think what she's saying there is it's all about the people. It's really being interested in people. It's really being interested in them and learning about what they do. And it seems she just really has an ability to see things from multiple perspectives, which really ends up breaking down naturally occurring silos that tend to form in some of these large organizations.
This is kind of like the chicken and the egg. What came first, the people skills or the change agent? And I think it was the affinity or the natural desire to make things better came first. And I learned that I couldn't do it alone because I made mistakes. I tried to do it. This is my way. This is the better way. I know this will work. Engineer, here's the problem to be solved. Here's the solution. Go do it. So I think the people side became something I recognized early, that you have to, if you're going to drive change, if it's a small change, you have complete autonomy to control. Yeah, you can be successful doing that. But the more impactful you want to be, the more important it is that you put yourself in a position to listen to all positions, all perspectives, and to get that collaboration going, because there's many, many ways to solve a problem. But if you get people engaged and you find common ground, oftentimes that you get to the best solution, because you're doing it with really just a bunch of different people are all motivated but their motivations come from different places, because we all have different KPIs, and sometimes those want to challenge or conflict with each other. And you can really work through it with a group of people, you tend to get to the best solution, and then you get that buy-in. And that is just, to me, there's nothing more exciting than see you spark, when you see that spark where people start talking, and all of a sudden you bring the problem or you bring an idea or a concept, and all of a sudden now you're not talking and you're sitting back and you're watching this group of really cool talent start throwing out ideas, and that would work, and how if we did this? And to me, that's the big reward, is seeing that happen and seeing your talent work together and go across aisles, and that's just super. That gets me excited.
Yeah, we're talking so much about like solid communication skills, and they're obviously key to any role, but I think especially in leadership. And I know that sounds like a really obvious statement, but I've never really known a good leader that didn't have good communication skills. And when I say communication, that's not just outward, that's also listening. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing you say is, that it's the communication skills that lead you to gaining that trust. And just being genuine with people is what gets them to open up. It's the capability of making people comfortable with you and allowing them to trust you and allowing them to feel safe about opening up and talking about ground truth. You have to become somewhat vulnerable with people. So, you got to follow through with your words. You got to apologize when you don't, and you have to really help back up others to really gain that trust. And that's when you really get that good information, and people start to really communicate with you and with others while you're in the room, like you're talking about.
Absolutely. When I talk about change, I try to look at it from all perspectives, but I'm always looking for my CEOs. And I don't mean CEO from an executive perspective. I'm looking for the people that are curious, eager, and open, right? If you got people who are curious, they're going to naturally want to learn. They're going to be the ones who are asking why. Why do we have this waste? Why does it take so long? Why do we not get what we want the first time? Why is the customer not happy? Right? But we want curious people. I look for that. I also look for people that are eager or hungry or not satisfied. I'll even take a frustrated person, because if I can take that as someone who's frustrated, but they're motivated and they're in it for the long haul, okay, I don't have a problem with anyone being, irritable or frustrated, because I can turn that frown upside down through empowerment. right? And then that openness, right? You got the curious, you got the eager, then you get this openness to hear feedback, openness to give you their ideas and their thoughts. Because asking someone's ideas is in some ways them trusting you with that information. And even they may think that this idea could be not a great idea. They're afraid of being judged. So, you want to get someone who's open, but open bidirectionally, because you want them to also be willing to receive feedback if you're trying to develop them at the same time you're trying to drive change, which should be what we're all trying to do is be better coworkers and help others be better at the same time. So I'm always looking for those CEOs, and those are all different, and those CEOs are executive level, and they can be from the ground up working level. But those are the folks you want to surround yourself with. Yeah, that's a great question. And, getting back to learning from mistakes and learning from successes, I've probably in this area learned more from making mistakes. And one thing I can think of is when you're trying to work with stakeholders, again, that top down, I talked about the CEO, but you also have stakeholders at the top, the executives that you need them to give you, what can executives give you? Really, three things. They can give you money, they can give you resources, and they can give you time. And realize one of the mistakes I made was expecting them to have the answer. And when I learned that, wait a minute, just because they're in a position of authority or position of power, whatever you want to say there, they don't have the answers. They're strategic. They know how to ask questions, but you occasionally do run into, I'm going to call it ego. Occasionally you can run into people that are difficult. And so to me, I liken that from a customer perspective. So years and years ago, I worked as a server in a restaurant, and there was nothing more challenging than coming in to work and having someone who's just bound and determined to make their meal, in their experience, horrible. They came in grumpy, and they were bound and determined to stay that way. Well, to me, that was just a challenge. How do I turn their frown upside down? It's really the same concept with a difficult stakeholder. First and foremost, you got to remember they're people too. They have feelings, they have biases, they have opinions, and they also have needs. So what I found is important, or what's beneficial in working with difficult stakeholders, is really listening, asking open-ended questions, and try to really listen to what they're saying, and keep asking open-ended questions to get them to talk. And if you run into a situation where they're just bound and determined not to support you, then go find an advocate, someone who that stakeholder does respect their opinion, and work through others who already have that relationship. Again, you're not, when you're the higher the individual you're working with, sometimes it's harder to get their time. And that, elevator pitch, I'm not a salesperson, not ever going to be. Yes, I'm a technical person, but I'm not going to be a salesperson by any means. So realize your own limitations and work through others as advocate if they have that relationship, would be another thing I've learned with managing difficult stakeholders. And then I guess lastly, think about the stakeholders' needs, KPIs, measures. What are you trying to do that connects to something that they care about? And you can figure out something, and I don't want to call it an angle so much as synergy. If you can find something in what you're trying to accomplish that's going to help them, and it's going to help them personally, it's going to help them professionally, you can figure out what they care about, and if you can help them connect to what you're trying to do, actually it aligns, it agrees with what they care about. If you can get that commonality, some people call it alignment, but if you can get there, then you're making a spark, you're making a connection. And then as you continue ask more questions, if they start asking you more questions, then they're interested. And then you're starting to break down these barriers, and they're becoming less difficult and they're becoming more open.
There's so much that you said there that just resonates with me. I think taking the time to understand what a difficult stakeholder cares about or is passionate about, learning about their worries, doing that research a little bit about learning more about them if you don't know, hearing them, and then maybe speaking to them about how you've taken that perspective into consideration. And it's going to sound really probably silly here, but understanding what I might call the workplace love languages, wherein the way individuals receive and give information.
Right.
And if a stakeholder is difficult, it may simply be because they communicate different than you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned sometimes it's hard in those situations. You get emotional. So sticking to the facts, keep your emotion out of the discussion, speak like what you're saying is speak to their priorities, their goals and objectives, and how, what you want to do aligns with them being successful, and just syncing up with what they're trying to do as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, it sounds funny, but like for me, I've always, if I didn't get along well with someone, even in my personal life or in workplace, I always want to get there with that person. So I just keep trying. But I've also learned that trying hard to get there may not always be the right approach, right? Sometimes you can't teach a bull to sing. So if you keep trying, sometimes you can just irritate the bull. So like you're saying, winning may be finding an alternate way to get through to this person. If you're not being effective, maybe finding that ally, or just someone else that can help you understand, a better way to communicate in a language in which they receive, I think can often be really helpful. Also, sometimes, you just know your strengths. So if you stick with what you're good at, I always felt like if I was bad at something, I needed to try to improve that. Well, sometimes it's better to stick with what you're good at and continue to do that really well. Identify those allies and the others that can help you do things that you don't do well, and you can be really effective in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. We're dealing with unprecedented situations. Everyone knows about the chip shortage. And I tell you, one of the things that we're really experiencing is chaos in our schedules, chaos with our customers. And we're very accustomed to an automotive working fast, but we're also used to working at a fast, steady pace. And what we're experiencing right now is just huge fluctuations in demand. Our customers will come up, they'll be running a sprint, and all of a sudden shut down their plant. So what that is exposing, think of this as in lean manufacturing, you talk about lowering inventory to be able to see all what your issues are. This is actually serving us. Again, I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna, but I look at what's happening as an opportunity, not a problem. Yeah, we have chip shortages. Yeah, that could be a problem. But look at what it's doing for us. It's allowing us to identify an opportunity for us to figure out how to respond to change more effectively and more efficiently. So we have this big, huge ship, and we need to learn how to turn it on a dime. Don't tell me we can't, because someone will figure out how to do that. So I'm interested in what I'm trying to do with my organization and through my teamwork is get people to understand that enterprise change can be a huge amount of horsepower on an outboard motor and can get really help your organization respond to that need much quicker and more efficiently. But we have to look at it as that opportunity and look at this as a collaborative effort. So I'm taking, I guess maybe you'd say, advantage of the situation to point out the synergy and the connection of how change management is connected to what's happening today. Because if our customers can figure out how to turn the lights off in 8 hours of an entire manufacturing plant with thousands and thousands of workers, everyone go home for 2 weeks. And then when a shipment of parts come in, chips or resin, they turn the lights back on. And within an hour, they've got that entire building up and running and cars going down the line. If they can figure that out, we should be able to figure out how to do that too.
When I worked with you, Cindy, I really saw you're always thinking about the future. So many people get really stuck in such their day to day and in the trenches of what they have and the issues that they're working on. But you're always able to have that positive light and that look forward a little bit and understanding that change is a journey, right? It's small wins eventually make really big strides and just like stay in the course. I think the Titanic, like you said, it's a difficult to steer with an oar. So sometimes it just takes a long time to get there, and not to be discouraged. Stick with it, gain that momentum, and make sure you got the support. And make sure you're in the key stakeholders' ears and be persistent. Eventually, you're going to get there. Culture is a big thing to change, and a lot of times these things become culture, and it's very difficult. It's very hard to change at times, but it can be done. And I think just having the right attitude and the persistence is really key.
Thank you, Brandy. And I wanted to share a little story. 3 years ago in North America within Yanfeng, I was the only person who understood what configuration management was. Flash forward now, 3 years ago, no one knew what was configuration management. No one knew what CM2 was. So I am this one person trying to get this message out, one person at a time, trying to get critical mass, get people at least knowing what this thing is. What is this standard? What can it do for you? Now we've got training material. We've got people talking about it. I'm hearing my colleagues in Europe, my colleagues in China. I hear it almost on a daily basis now outside of engineering, which gets me super excited. So yes, progress over perfection is really important if you're going to be a change agent, because I can be less patient than most. So you have to remind yourself that, are you changing direction? Are you getting people pointed in a different way? And are they heading on a different course, and they're heading towards where you're trying to take them? And as long as they stay on that path, they will. The group will eventually get there. And it does take patience, but it's always worth it. It's always worth the long haul. Well, first and foremost, talk to people that are trying to do good work every day. Ask them what are their struggles, what are their problems, and if those problems, those struggles were solved, what would the benefits be? And then take those benefits and get data. Go look at we all can resonate around cost. So what is the cost of doing business today the way we're doing it today? And if you can start putting dollars and cents to it, that is something that everyone in business can align around. So it's been my experience that if you can quantify your current state, if you can put your current process together and document what the struggles are, and we want to put the human element to it, because we do get wonderful results even with bad processes, but we do it through incredibly talented people that are very hardworking. And the more we want to innovate and use technology can't think. It is all ones and zeros. But humans, we can process so much information and realize these nuances as we're trying to solve problems, and we develop all these workarounds, and they're not really documented. So trying to synthesize all that and get to the dollars and cents of what is it costing us today, and if we were to do it differently or better, how could we reinvest what we would save in something else we care about, whether that is a learning management system, is it talent development of our people, is it getting into a new product area that allows us to invest in capital and business that creates more opportunity and growth for employees. This is, everything's connected. And if we can show how we're all connected, it's through that data collection and showing the what if. So what's in it for me? And again, getting back to that intent listening, listen with intent. try to understand what others want. And at the end of the day, if you start really listening to people, they all want the same thing. So how do you figure out how to show them the benefits of what you're trying to achieve, that they will feel that their needs are being met, that we're listening to them. So yeah, just my answer.
I think just to add to that, and I agree with everything Cindy just said, I think a lot of it is, most people think they're not good at negotiation. Well, we're all doing negotiation on a daily basis, right? We do negotiation with our spouses, with our children. We do this all the time. So I think, a lot of people need to just open their minds and think about how they're underestimating the amount of influence they have with just the people in their close circle. And I even mean that in the workplace, right? So I think your span of influence is probably a lot greater than you think. And, I think when it comes to, leaders or trying to get some negotiation and get alignment with higher level, I think you got to pick and choose your battles sometimes. I think sometimes the right thing to do is maybe not to be right and be smart about that and think about the relationship first, because sometimes building the relationship first can really help set that foundation. And a lot of times, I think you said it earlier, where you learn the most by some of your mistakes. And unfortunately, I think that's just the case for everyone. We have those moments in time that just changes forever. And one of the ones for me is work behind the scenes. The best feeling for me when I think about, sometimes in program management is to have all of the legwork done in advance. Know the outcome of your meeting before it starts, and then solidify the results in the meeting. And, getting a group of high-level leaders in a room to make a decision cold can be a very difficult or almost impossible thing to do. So a lot of that lead work, it may take a lot more work outside of the meeting, but then, to walk in and basically have very little effort there to have that result that you're looking for can be really satisfying and really motivational.
Yeah, well said, Brandy. To build on that, I have learned through mistakes of going in cold, saying, "Oh, I'm prepared. I'm going to show them this problem and solution. I got this." And then walk in and they bring up all these reasons why this isn't going to work, why this is the most important problem. And you realize, wait a minute, I didn't have my what I'll call homework done. I didn't get everyone the same basic common understanding. I didn't have everyone coming into the meeting with the same common ground. And so by lessons learned, right? I learned that, okay, if you're trying to have this outcome of this meeting to get everyone on board to say yes, then there's a whole lot of effort that's going on in the background to make sure they understand what you're going to show them, tell them what you're going to show them what you told them, and tell them what you showed them again.
Exactly.
And do all that homework before you get everyone together, because you get everyone together and then they're going to be bouncing ideas off of each other. And they're also the quiet ones are the ones you have to worry about, because they're the deep thinkers.
Yep. Very well said. I fully agree. So my email is brandy@ipxhq.com. So you can always email me. I'm also on LinkedIn or on most of social media as well. And you can also go to ipxhq.com and learn more about IPX and how we might be able to help you guys.
And for me, you can find me on LinkedIn under Cindy Price. And my email, you can always reach out to me by email. It's Cynthia, CYNTHIA .price@yanfeng.com is my email. And then I'm in social media if you want to find me. Although I'm not terribly active on Facebook or social media, but definitely active on LinkedIn. So if you want to see me or want to reach out to me, probably LinkedIn is the best approach to that. I just want to say thank you. I'm honored that you wanted to spend time with me, Brandy. Again, we've had so many working sessions, and you've been very instrumental in the journey, at least with Yanfeng, the journey and spending time with our team to try to help us on our journey on improving our change management processes. And I continue to look forward to having opportunities to collaborate with you on that.
Thanks, Cindy. This has been super fun. Thanks for connecting with us.
Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe and review the show. And for more information on IPX, visit ipxhq.com.